Hi, this is Unit 4, the informative speech. I'll be doing a topical presentation. My name is John. I'm a safety professional of about 25 to 30 years. I've been working in the service industry since I was about 16 years old. And the service industry encompasses retail, grocery, restaurant, mall type environments. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about the topic of signs and barricading of hazards when we're performing a spill cleanup. I felt this would be a good topic considering the number of students at CSU that are studying safety related course material, and signing and barricading is a process within the service industry that many people that enter to the job market will be exposed to from one time to another. So let me give you some context of why I chose this topic. Signing and barricading is a very underutilized skill in the industry, and what I mean by that is that there is a huge problem in the industry with training and mentorship when it comes to signing and barricading and making the decision on what to do first, what to do second. And the result of these breakdowns is that many slip and fall incidences occur when we are trying to clean up a spill in an aisleway or a walkway or a restaurant or a place where people are walking, especially the front end of a store that's very busy. And so this topic is a very serious topic. It's a topic near and dear to me. It's an important topic because there are approximately 22,000 slip and falls each year, according to the CDC, that happen in the United States. And that accounts for 8 million ER visits annually, accounting for millions and millions of dollars in costs to both taxpayers and privately for slip and fall incidents to happen. So as a safety professional, anything we can do to prevent slip and falls from happening in the first place is a endeavor worth embarking on, I would think anyway. Signing and barricading is a very counterintuitive skill in nature, and what I mean by that is a lot of times when something is counterintuitive, it means that one might think it's done one way, but it actually needs to be done a whole different way, or the opposite of what one might actually think. So that's when something is counterintuitive. Many people fail at the signing regimen because they don't think about the priorities. And so what I do when I teach people about signing and barricading is I ask them a question. It's kind of a test question, and the question kind of goes like this. I'll ask somebody, let's say, it's kind of a role play, and I'll say, let's say your boss tells you, hey, I want you to clean up that coffee spill in the front of a Walmart. And the question I ask someone is, what's the first two things that you need to think about or do action-wise in order to clean up that spill safely? And many times the answer I get from somebody is going to be, well, I need to either get a mop, or I need to get a spill sign, or maybe I need to pull a towel out of my pocket and clean up the mess. And very logical answer, very normal answer. However, that answer is very incorrect and very illogical when you think about the priority that you're being asked to do as the retail person or the clerk that's tasked to clean up the spill. And what I mean by that is the priorities are safety first. So in the industry, customer employee safety is the number one priority. So that becomes the first priority. The second priority is actually removing the spill from the walkway. And if you mix those two up, those two priorities get backwards, you can actually create a hazardous environment that leads to a fall happening rather than a safe environment where you keep people safe and remove the hazard at the same time. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit here in detail so that you understand kind of where I'm coming from and what those steps are. And so if you think about it, if the priority is to keep people safe, then that's the first thing we need to do. And the question becomes then, how do we keep people safe when we know there's a spill in the walkway? And the way we keep people safe in the industry is we contain or control the environment. And what I mean by that is, if you were to think back, there's an old movie. It's not an old movie for me, but it's an older movie called Rush Hour 3 with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. And if you were to Google the traffic cop scene for Chris Tucker, you would see Chris in the middle of an intersection in downtown Los Angeles, and he's got his his hands and he's doing the whole whistle thing, and he's stopping cars and he's moving traffic through the intersection when the lights are not working. And so basically that's the idea, is you want to take control of the situation. You want to start directing traffic and guard the spill area and alert people that there is now a spill on the ground and that they need to avoid this area, and you need to direct them to go around it or behind it or go a different direction or whatever it is that's applicable. And that's the first priority. That's the first thing we need to do. It's the way we prevent people from contacting the hazard in the first place. And what we call that in the business separation from hazard. So we want to separate them from the hazard by directing them or giving them some direction verbally and physically so that they move. The second thing we need to do, the second part of this process, is to contain the spill hazard, and we contain it one of two ways. You can contain it by creating a barricade around the hazard, and many times that's done with caution tape or shopping carts or chairs or things that you can physically block people's pathway, and you can contain the area in a manner that you can now mop and clean up the spill. And the second way we do it, if we don't have those kind of objects, is we use signs. And so signs are a very commonly used tool in the industry to put down and let people know that the floor is now going to be compromised when we are cleaning up a spill. The question, though, becomes with signs is how many signs are we supposed to use, and where should we put the signs? Because this is, again, where the counterintuitive nature of this problem comes into play here. If we don't put the signs in the right place, people can still walk into an area that's wet. They can still walk into the hazard that you don't want them to walk into, and there can still be a slip and fall happening even though you have one or two signs in the area. And so it's important that the signs are placed in the right place so that we give a warning to people and let them know there's a problem. And here's how we do that. First, if you were to consult some kind of documentation or authoritative reference about this, you could go to OSHA, and OSHA has a document called Signs, Signals, and Barricades. You could also go to ANSI Z535 standard and look at the language in both the OSHA or the ANSI standard to give you some text to actually point to and say this is the correct way to do it. And if you look at those documents, there's some significant wording in those documents that I find convey to me or inform me that I know that what I'm talking about is the correct method. The first thing that the documents talk about is signs need to be in a place where you are conveying a message or allowing someone to perceive a message that you are trying to tell them. Well, that tells me that a sign has to be placed in a position where it can't surprise anybody and it can't overtake anybody. Meaning, if someone is walking up towards you, before they hit the hazard itself, they should know what the hazard is and where the hazard is by the way you've put the signs out. The other language in the standards that I find convincing is the standard says placement of signs must be in all pathways of pedestrian traffic. Well, what that means is you need to consider, again, back to the example of the front of a Walmart, you need to consider the aisleways or the many different pathways someone might be walking up to the hazard area that you're trying to clean. And so a sign literally needs to be placed, and it could mean several signs, placed in a manner around you so that way as from every direction that someone could conceivably walk up to you and interfere with your business, that they know there's a problem because there's a sign there. And so that's what the signing language says from the standards. So once you have your spill contained and you have your signs up or you use a barricade or signing method, you can now do the thing you were meant to do, which was to clean up the spill in the first place. Only now you're doing it in the right way or the right priorities steps. And so when we do it this way and when we barricade things off and we separate the public from our cleanup efforts, what we find is that the amount of slip and falls that happen go down to almost zero unless someone's just blatantly not paying attention. Even then, we can pretty much prevent it. So we find a less risky situation when we've done this the correct way versus the non-correct way, which is to simply react with one sign or just start to clean up the spill without putting signs. So in conclusion, I hope you've learned some dynamics or some integral details about how to clean up a spill and what steps you need to take and how to prioritize that that task when you're asked to do it, should you be working in the industry. And I wish you all the best of luck in your career. If you'd like to read more about this or research this more, you can Google or research on the internet signs and barricades in retail establishments or retail or service industry. Signs and barricades, there's a lot of information that comes up. You can also obtain information from OSHA. You can obtain information from ANSI standards. And I'll leave you with just this thought. Right now there's 22,000 slip and falls per day in the United States that occur. And in the next 5 to 10 years, over 100 million baby boomers will be hitting the age of 65, which is a third of our society's population. So the slip and fall epidemic is going to get even worse as the next 5 to 10 years go on. And as you might develop in your career in safety, you need to be conscientious of the fact that many more people than today will be at an age of where a slip and fall potentially can kill them, can maim them, can lower their life expectancy through the different injuries that can occur on a slip and fall. So it's a very serious topic, and signing in barricades is just one little piece of slip and fall prevention that I thought you'd be well served to know. And with that, I'll answer any questions that anyone has tonight. Thank you.